Hey there and welcome back to another Moon Knight review. And today we're going to be talking about the third episode to drop, The Friendly Type, which picks up just after Mark's journey to Egypt to hunt for Amit's tomb and sets up a lot of big plot points for the latter half of the season. Now, I will admit, I've fallen behind on the reviews a little bit, and this one was written before the fourth episode was released. I just never got round to recording and editing it beforehand, so I'm playing a little bit of catch up now. Anyway though, the show's really starting to pick up, and I'm really getting intrigued. And so, with all that being said, let's jump into the review. So we start off the episode following Layla as she gets what I assume is a fake passport made as she vents about what Mark's been getting up to. Angry that he went into hiding, angry that he was living so close to their old home, angry that he's going to get himself killed running around Cairo like a madman. Anyway, it's made clear that she is also an international criminal involved in the black market trade, and more specifically, liberating Egyptian artifacts that have been looted by archaeologists and whatnot over the centuries and taken out of Egypt during its colonial subjugation. So already we're being set up to feel like this character is a paragon of virtue. But I did enjoy that they then resisted making her perfect, with her referencing how she keeps some of them for herself and sells them on in order to pay the bills. And I wonder then if she then tries to steal them again to return them to their rightful owners afterwards. So yeah, she seems like a bit of a Robin Hood type character. Then they make reference to her dad being an archaeologist and hints that he died in the desert. Are they going to reveal that Mark murdered her dad? If so, that is dark. And I'm not really sure how you come back from that from a relationship point of view. Is this her villain origin story? Or are they going to fizzle out? It's honestly quite intriguing. From here we see Harrow and his cult arrive at what seems to be an old archaeological site and realise that this must be the site of Amit's tomb, so obviously we're drawing ever closer to actually meeting this mysterious entity. Although, on the other hand, I could see them just not reveal the character and keep her in their back pocket for a while. It's probably not all that likely, but I do think it's a distinct possibility. Anyway, we then get a look at what Mark's been up to since he arrived in Egypt, with him parkouring over rooftops in search of an informant, who is abruptly murdered by Harrow's thugs as he arrives. So yeah, that's a bit of a bummer. Poor dude. Anyway, there's then a fight between Mark and the knife-wielding thugs, and I liked how they referenced how silly some of these fights can be in the scene directly. Like, nobody in the world would be so weird with the knives. But then in action movies, they always do these weird tricks and flips and stuff that doesn't make sense in an actual combat scenario. And I'm glad they addressed it in a tongue-in-cheek way that didn't detract too much from what was going on. Anyway, Mark gets a little too into the beatdown, and so Steven takes control and tries to get him to leave the thugs behind. But Mark then takes control back, and there's a classic chase through the marketplace scene, before another brief fight begins, before after a Steven distraction, Mark gets KO'd and has another shift to someplace outside the city where he's butchered all but one of the thugs, with both him and Steven being certain it wasn't them. So yeah, there's a third dude for sure. And he's not a very happy chappy, I'd expect, judging by what he did to those goons. Unfortunately though, the last dude kills himself before he can reveal a thing, and so Khonsu has to resort to different methods to prevent Amit being awakened. Namely, calling a meeting of the gods. And since this is only episode 3, it's pretty clear from the get-go that this meeting is not going to go well at all. And after a friendly interaction between Mark and the avatar for Hathor, the goddess of fertility and love, it all goes to shit. And when summoned, Harrow is able to gaslight and manipulate everybody into believing Mark and Khonsu are crazy. So yeah, it really couldn't have gone much worse than that beyond getting turned to stone. And it was really sad to see how tortured Mark really is. It makes me curious to see what actually happened to him, because there's obviously something we're missing. Anyway though, Hathor's avatar then feels bad for him, and I think begins to believe him to a certain extent. And so she tells him to seek out a specific sarcophagus belonging to a man named Senfu, which I'm sure he will just conveniently stumble across very easily and very soon. And it's a good thing that his soon-to-be ex-wife has black market contacts, and so they take a sort of romantic ferry trip there, only to discover that Harrow's goon squad is already there. Anyway, they meet the contact, who's a typical eccentric billionaire type, and after a bit of a tense conversation, Mark and Steven put aside their differences to try and decode the location of Amit's tomb. Obviously though, rich black market criminal business types don't particularly like it when you ransack their artifacts, and this causes a confrontation. Made worse when Harrow turns up and offers up the scarab and destroys the sarcophagus for good measure. A fight scene then ensues where Mark massacres the hell out of the goons and kills the black market guy, or at least I think he's dead. Maybe he was supposed to survive and come back considering he rode off into the mist, but Since his actor's dead now, I think we can just assume he's dead. And I gotta say, it was nice to see Moon Knight absolutely just go bananas on those goons. We haven't really gotten a measure of what he's capable of before, as he's only really fought those jackal things once or twice, and Mark's fighting was done via jump cut when we only followed Steven's point of view. So seeing him lay waste to those thugs and use a bunch of his abilities was really enjoyable. Great action. Oh, and there was even more hints that he killed Layla's dad. So yeah, this is not going to end well. So Mark and Layla go into the desert to try and piece together the clues that were almost destroyed by Harrow, but conveniently survived, prompting Mark to shift into Steven, who solves it almost instantly. And then on top of that, he keeps giving the old puppy dog eyes to Layla, and once again, I don't know about the ethics of all of that. So yeah, I'm thinking surely that this is just not going to end well for anybody involved in this story. It's just deep cringe. Anyway, he fixes the map, but it's useless as it doesn't line up to the position of stars in the modern day, which is very unfortunate. But luckily for them, Khonsu apparently can control the sky, and he and Steven put aside their mutual disdain to turn back the night sky by 2,000 years so that Layla can figure out where they have to go. But at the same time, the other gods convene to turn Khonsu to stone, so that's a bit of a bummer. But on the other hand, I'm also really glad from a narrative point of view that they gave this convenient plot point solution some actual consequences and a trade-off. It just makes the story feel like it has more stakes and that it doesn't just go all the right way for the heroes all the time. They have to earn their victories. But anyway, this scene visually was just, it was so good. The sky shifting and then the stars becoming these shifting streams of light. That was just awesome. And the music? Epic. Perfect scene. Back to the story though, Khonsu's sealed away in stone, and Steven collapses from the strain of what he's been through on top of the rapid loss of his powers, before we end the episode with a scene of Harrow talking to Khonsu's statue about how everything he's doing is his fault. How he broke Harrow, like he's broken Mark it seems. And that he made him enjoy dealing out death and pain on his behalf, and that ultimately, his service to Amit is about healing. Not just himself, but the world. But that he wouldn't have walked this path if it wasn't for Khonsu. So in essence, he engineered his own downfall. And I found this to be another really interesting scene, and one I hope they expand more on in the coming episodes. I really want to take a look at Harrow in much greater detail, and get more insight into his backstory at some point in the future. And I hope they actually show it, and don't just give us exposition. But whatever they do, I'm sure that's going to come in the latter half of the season. Anyway though, that's the end of the episode, and the end of the review. And I would like to say that these are just my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the episode? Like it, hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.